It all began on a seemingly ordinary day when a teacher chose to take his life inside the school for a reason both baffling and bizarre. Yet the real horror started only afterward. Terrifying incidents erupted in plain daylight, leaving dozens of witnesses shaken to their core. A chilling and bizarre story you'd never expect, and I guarantee you've never heard it before. So don't forget to hit that like button, my friend. Let's dive into today's episode. Peace be upon you, I'm Ali Ahmed. Today it's all about your stories, so if you've got one to share, feel free to send it over through the Instagram account on screen. The first story comes from Saudi Arabia, from a young man named Manny Al-Marzouk. He says, I'm 26 years old now, living in Najran. But this story goes back to my middle and high school days. It all started at a school in Najran. I won't mention the name for obvious legal reasons, but anyone from the city will probably guess it right away. Back in 2016, during regular school hours, a heated argument broke out between a teacher and an administrator, shouting, chaos, confusion. Nobody knew what was going on. So what was the scandal? Something bizarre. A teacher secretly trying to sway students' minds, urging them toward another faith. He told them there were hidden truths they didn't know, and that they should even be free to choose their religion. The real problem was that this faith had ties to Buddhism. More precisely, it was a branch of Buddhist traditions that worshipped animals. Now imagine this. A teacher inside that very school was secretly devoted to this belief. In other words, he might have been venerating rats, cows, and such creatures. And at every chance he got, he would present the religion's virtues to his students, polishing it up in hopes of winning new followers. You might be shocked, my friend, wondering how a perfectly intelligent teacher could possibly worship something like a cow. Well, imagine this happening not in some far-off land, but in Saudi Arabia. In an Arab society where everyone's a Muslim. But let me tell you, I once knew a doctor, a man with a medical degree, who devoted himself to some strange faith I couldn't even recognize. It wasn't Buddhism, not even close. I honestly have no idea what it was. So don't be too surprised, my friend. Behind the classroom doors, the teacher had a hidden agenda. He was a Buddhist, subtly painting his faith in glowing colors to win over young minds. But one student wasn't deceived. He reported the strange behavior in secret, with several classmates standing as witnesses to his claim. That set off days of quiet surveillance by the school. Until at last, the mask fell. The teacher was exposed, caught in the act of preaching Buddhism to his class. And that's when the uproar began. The news spread across the entire school in an instant, and the administration wasted no time calling the police. The teacher knew exactly what this meant. If the police caught him with 30 students and even members of the school administration ready to testify, he was done for. Either he'd rot in prison for life, or he'd face the ultimate punishment, straight into the afterlife. In both cases, his fate was sealed. There was no way out of a disaster this monumental. When the teacher realized the game was over, everything exposed, every proof pointing straight at him, he sighed and said, "That's it, I'm doomed anyway. At least let me spend my final moments in worship." He cleared the classroom, sent all the students out, and locked himself inside until the police arrived. The police showed up and struggled to break down the door, only to discover it was barricaded with rows upon rows of desks, crammed tightly from wall to wall. But escape? Impossible. He was trapped on the 4th floor of the school, and the door was the only exit. At last, when the officers had reached the end of their patience, they took the simplest, most brutal solution. They tore the entire door out of its frame. The shock was beyond words. The teacher lay lifeless on the floor, blood pooling around him in every sense of the word. How did he die? He had taken a steel ruler and savagely slashed the veins in his arms and legs. On the walls and even the blackboard, he had scrawled blood-soaked phrases glorifying his faith. It was a harrowing scene. Horrific, unforgettable, and it marked not just the end of his life, but the beginning of a chilling new chapter at the school. And for those wondering why the students never spoke up from the start, the answer is simple. Money. He showered them with cash, claiming it was one of the blessings of his faith. Follow me and I'll make you rich. That was the deal. The students, perhaps blinded by the benefits, played along. They kept his secret because in their minds, everyone was winning. Following that incident, the entire wing was sealed off for months. The year came to a close, and to my misfortune, I didn't pass. I was left behind in the same grade. Over the summer break, the school erased every trace by redesigning the 4th floor where the incident had occurred. The school had a bold ambition to secure a spot among the world's leading schools. That meant adopting global benchmarks, beginning with a student training hall, showers, restrooms, and proper changing rooms. The long neglected 4th floor, once seen as wasted space, suddenly became the perfect stage for this transformation. And indeed, the entire 4th floor was transformed into a gym, a computer lab, and a few other sections. The very classroom where that teacher had died was turned into shower rooms. Dozens of small, separate cubicles lined up side by side, with toilets facing them. But here's the strange part, something you need to know before the story goes any further. Above every single shower stall was a glass window. It means there are 12 showers, each crowned with a window, and 12 toilets, also topped with their own windows. That makes a total of 24 windows lining both sides. And why am I telling you this number? Listen closely and prepare to be shocked. When the new section opened, excitement spread among the students. And why wouldn't it? With time, our school could rise to global recognition and stand out as something extraordinary. From the very first days of the academic year, we started attending sports lessons and using these facilities with ease, as if they had always been part of our school life. 7 days after the grand opening, the school guard filed a chilling report. At night, he would hear the desperate screams of a man echoing from upstairs. Yet whenever he rushed to investigate, the cries always seemed to come from the bathrooms, though inside there was never a single soul. Rumors quickly spread among the students. Some claimed they were violently attacked while inside those very bathrooms, the bruises on their bodies serving as undeniable proof. But who or what was striking them? No one knew. Suddenly, the cry of an old man pierced the air, lasting only a few seconds from inside the bathroom, then gone without a trace in broad daylight, my friend. And yet, not a single shred of proof was ever found, neither to confirm the guard's story nor the students'. Still, the testimonies kept coming. On a certain day, 3 of my friends and I, fellow repeaters of the school year, agreed to dive into a strange, thrilling adventure. We would record every moment, carry those memories into our university days, and leave behind a mark that no one before us had dared to make. So, what was this adventure all about? We'd pack some food in our bags and tell our parents we were heading out to study together after school. So, the school day would end, we'd gather in one place, pretending to study until late in the evening, then go back home without our parents ever objecting. We always did it that way, but the truth is, we weren't really there to study. It was something entirely different. We decided to spend the rest of the day inside the school bathrooms, on the 4th floor to be exact, when the entire building was completely empty. On one hand, it was our chance to live a one-of-a-kind adventure. On the other, it was the only way to find out if the rumors were true. Students whispering about screams, or someone getting beaten inside. It was a stupid plan, no doubt about it, and yet we went through with it. The moment classes ended, we slipped away to the 4th floor and holed up in the bathrooms, holding our breath. Another 15 minutes passed, and sure enough, the teachers and the administration left one by one. The school fell into silence, empty, deserted. Except for one man, the guard, whose small room stood watch beside the entrance on the ground floor. He was way below. We were hidden high above. The distance between us was just enough to give us the freedom we needed. We slipped away, my friends and I, sitting in silence. Munching, chatting, killing time. The greatest relief was knowing there weren't any cameras in the school bathrooms. The guard had no idea we were there. An hour of blistering heat and mind-numbing boredom dragged on before we finally said enough. But how could we escape without being spotted by the watchful eyes of the guard? It was around dusk, the sky beginning to fade. Our official classes wouldn't even start until the evening, and that's exactly when the unexpected happened. We were sitting on the floor at the far end of the restroom when we began to hear a faint sound, like something or someone knocking on one of the stall doors. The tapping was soft but steady, and in the silence of that place, it echoed clearly. My friends and I froze, holding our breath. The sound was unmistakable. It was coming from the very first stall. Out of nowhere, breaking the silence, the sound rose. Louder, sharper. Someone was slamming the bathroom door from the inside with unbelievable force. Who was it? How did they get in? Had they been there all along? We had no idea. To be honest, I was so terrified I almost wet myself. Still, we kept our composure, not daring to make a sound, afraid the guard might hear us. Without any warning, he started moving forward, drifting from door to door, literally. One moment he was on the right, the next on the left, and then unmistakably he was closing in on us. We sat frozen in terror, our knees trembling so badly it felt as if they betrayed us. Maybe that's what they meant by al-ruka, when fear makes your legs useless, robbing you of any chance to run. Out of nowhere, the pounding became unbelievably intense, like someone was slamming the door with their full force. The door shook violently before our eyes, and one by one, every door around us started rattling in quick bursts, though no one was in sight. Suddenly, every faucet in the place turned on at the very same second. I was stunned, but the shock on my friends' faces was even greater. And then we heard it. The knocking, moving from the doors to the windows. Something bizarre was striking every window in rapid, random bursts. The worst part? We were on the 4th floor. No human could possibly be out there. I swear, the fear made me nauseous. Before I even knew it, I was on my feet, abandoning everything as I sprinted away. I just needed to escape that place. Any way out would do. My friends reacted the same way, running beside me, fear written all over their faces. As we stumbled down the school stairs, a blood-chilling scream erupted from the bathrooms. The same bathrooms we knew no one was inside. At that very moment, the guard was stunned to find Mana and his friends racing down the stairs. He rushed to intercept them, seizing them just as a wave of screams echoed from above. Without another thought, he let go and charged upward, leaving the boys to flee the school in sheer, bone-deep terror. The very next day, the administration called them in and summoned their guardian. They were asked, "What exactly were you doing in the bathroom?" Mana says, "We told them everything about our little adventure. An adventure so strange that it left them puzzled, yet they believed us." Why? Because the guard himself had already reported hearing screams, along with banging on the windows and doors inside the 4th floor bathrooms. So, if we were lying, then the guard couldn't have been lying. And if the guard was lying, then we surely weren't. In response, the school took the testimonies of those students, Mana, his friends, the guard, and others who had also been beaten, seriously. They decided to seal off the entire 4th floor. To this day, the school remains that way. Now the 4th floor is nothing more than a storage space, cut off completely from the rest of the building. The prevailing belief is that ever since that tragic death, the place has been haunted. But the truth, only God knows. You can make your own interpretation and share it in the comments. The second story comes from Harith, a young Iraqi man now living in France. "My name is Harith," he says. "I'm 33, from Baghdad, and married to a woman named Zara. But after just one night of marriage, I was forced to leave Iraq. A vendetta. A crime that took place during my wedding changed everything. I was never connected to it in any way, yet it unfolded on the night of my wedding to Zara. The crime was never intentional. Still, vengeance marked me as its target. In the dead of night, I fled. No doubt aided by my family, and by God's mercy, I made it out of Iraq and began a new life in Marseille, France. The story begins in our very first days in France. After arriving, we were placed by law in temporary housing for asylum seekers. Once our case was approved by the immigration office, we spent some time in a mandatory housing complex. Eventually, we left with our newly granted French residency. From there, I immediately searched for the best city where I could work and build a life. That's when Marseille caught my eye. A city full of opportunities and higher wages, the perfect place to start over. I took Zara to Marseille and we started looking for a suitable place to live. Unfortunately, at the time, we couldn't find a good place at a reasonable price except in a neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. Nothing unusual for newcomers, of course. Eventually, we found ourselves in a modest apartment inside a small 3-floor building with just 6 flats in the entire block. Every floor had 2 apartments staring at each other across the hallway. Mine was the 5th one, tucked away on the top floor, a floor most people avoided. Why? Because the law didn't allow buildings with just 3 stories to have an elevator, which meant that anyone living on the 3rd floor had no choice but to wrestle with the stairs every single day. That's why I always thought of it as a place not meant for everyone. The price was fair, so we took it. We stayed there for about 4 days, gathering furniture and setting up the main apartment. At last, we said to ourselves, we finally settled in. Thank God. And what's the first thing you do when you move somewhere new? You meet the neighbors. Good neighbors turn a house into a safe haven. When I leave home, knowing the person next door is kind, I never worry. After God, it's my neighbor who watches over my home. Zara had baked pastries and sweets, and together we went around to the neighbors, apartment by apartment in the building. Bonjour, je suis, like, hi, I'm your new neighbor. But the French didn't seem all that sociable, because almost every door I knocked on opened just long enough for me to finish my sentence, and then quietly shut again without a single reply. I finally reached the 6th apartment in the building, the one directly across from mine. I knocked on the door and waited for about 5 minutes before it slowly opened, revealing an older lady. I greeted her and, using a translation app, explained that I was her new neighbor, introduced my wife Zara, and told her we lived in apartment number 5. Unlike the rest of the building's residents, this lady was incredibly kind, her smile stretching across her entire face, radiant and warm. She started speaking rapidly in French, not a word of which I understood, but from her gestures, Zara and I quickly realized she was inviting us into her home. We walked in and laid the pastries on the table. Soon, a young woman, barely 20, appeared, followed by a little girl of about 10. They stood at a distance, staring at us silently. No greetings, no words. Only the older woman spoke, but we couldn't make sense of a single thing she said. Not even Google Translate could keep up with her. It was as if she was speaking in some strange mix of words and shortcuts. The girls, on the other hand, remained utterly quiet, responding only with slight nods and shy smiles whenever Zara tried to speak to them. We sat there, taking in every detail: the apartment, the furniture, and the woman herself. She served us tea, and everything felt just perfect. We left the apartment delighted to have such a kind neighbor. Days passed, 2, then 3. At last I found a suitable job, reassured that Zara was safe, spending her time chatting and learning from the young woman, the daughter of our neighbor. The young woman spoke naturally, but there was something deeply unusual about her. For 20 days straight, the same scene kept repeating itself. Zahra would invite our young neighbor over, and together they'd spend hours lost in conversation. Each time, the girl's elderly mother would answer the door first, smiling and speaking words Zahra couldn't make sense of. Then the girl herself would appear, crossing over to our home and staying late into the evening, sometimes right up until the moment I returned. But then came the 20th day. That evening, Zahra called me. "What's the story?" I asked. Her answer chilled me. "I swear, I don't know." I stopped by our old neighbor's place. She gestured as if to call for her daughter, but instead she rambled on, her words a blur I couldn't follow. Her daughter never came out, which was strange. Since she always did, I figured she might not be home. The old woman kept trying to tell me something, but her meaning slipped away. When I asked Zahra about it, she said, "That woman came to me today. She knocked, kept talking, and then left." I couldn't understand a thing. Maybe she's in need of something, or maybe there's more to it. But one thing is certain, her daughter is nowhere to be found. I told her, "All right, once I get home, I'll try to figure out what she really meant." And the day went on as usual. When I got back, I said to Zahra, "Maybe that girl was just upset with you at first. In the end, they're all a bit troubled and don't really like to socialize. Just give it a couple of days, then go ahead and call her again, okay?" She said, "Okay." H-rate 50. 3 days passed in silence. Zahra appeared, knocked at the door, and signaled to the woman. "Your eldest daughter, call her." She was pressing her, trying to make her understand. That's when the woman started speaking in a sharp tone. Afterwards, she closed the door. Zahra realized that this lady didn't want her daughter to meet us. Then she called me, upset, saying, "The French really are mentally complicated." I explained what had happened, then told her to keep peace with our neighbor. I'll just greet her politely, hand her some bread, and head back home. No more conversations, no more ties. And that's exactly what I did. After work, I stopped to get 3 French loaves and a few croissants. I went to her place, knocked, and handed her the bread with a modest smile. She immediately started talking non-stop, gesturing in every direction. I didn't understand a word. Still, it was clear she was trying to tell me something. She kept motioning toward our flat and mentioning Zahra by name. I gathered from the woman's words that she meant, "Call your wife and come in." So I called Zahra and together we stepped into her house. She was agitated, speaking in a frantic, incoherent manner. Her tone alone revealed how irritated she was. This time I stopped her mid-speech and explained that she needed to slow down so we could make sense of her words through Google Translate. Before we even started talking, I couldn't help but notice a picture inside a frame on one of the shelves. It was a photo of this young lady's daughters, one older, one younger. Through the translator, I told her, "Oh, first of all, we apologize for bothering you. My wife didn't mean anything by it. She just really wanted to meet your eldest daughter." The woman was surprised and pointed to the picture on the shelf. I said, "Oui," meaning yes in French, and then I heard the shock. The woman said in a calm, slow manner for the translation app that her 2 daughters had been dead for years. They died in a fire that consumed the entire building. Her 2 daughters and some other residents of the building died. At the time, she wasn't there. I mean, the mother. And the building was restored, and the mother returned to live in her same apartment. Arth recounted, "The moment I saw those words on the screen, it was like a punch to the chest. I stood up, pulled Zahra with me, and we walked straight out of the woman's house." Silent, shaken. Zahra and I were stunned, our minds racing. What on earth had just happened? I pressed her. "When you used to knock on their door and call her name, what exactly took place?" Zara whispered each time the elderly woman appeared first. Then the young girl would follow, speak to me, and we'd go into our house. The mother would slip back into hers, leaving me with the girl as we tried to talk. It was then, connecting the fragments, that the dreadful realization hit us. Both of those daughters had long been dead. How did we see it? What exactly happened? Just a single word, sharp and final. Escape. Leave everything. The apartment, the furniture, the memories. Rent a new place in the heart of the city, sell the old stuff, and start over with new. But how on earth did we see her daughters? Honestly, I have no idea. And I swear to you, it wasn't only Zara who saw her. Even I did, and I still have no explanation for it. Got a theory of your own? Share it in the comments. I'd love to read it. As we close today's episode, make sure to browse the past videos on the channel. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you're always in the loop. Oh, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram. I'm Ali Ahmed. Until next time, goodbye.